Hey folks, Mythic ODM here. At GenCon, Paizo ran an hour-long preview of the remastered series of the player core and the GM core. They showed off several of the pages, and thanks to Raving Dork on the Paizo forums, we have a PDF of all the pages in the video. Needless to say, that saved me several hours of work putting clips together, so thank you so much for that, and I will put a link to the forums in the description below. The video featured Jason Bulman, Director of Game Designs, and Michael Sayer, Design Manager, and James Case, Senior Designer. Now, I do have one quick personal gripe, but Paizo, please get your folks good streaming gear, especially microphones. Cameras, lights would be nice touch, but either have them grab a green screen or give them some Paizo art or something to put behind them just to punch it up a little bit. But some of the mic volumes were really, really off, and it really showed, so it made it a little distracting. All right. So first off, they showed the difference between the revised core and the current core rulebook. So the current core rulebook looks something like that. Now, one thing to keep in mind is this is an actual PDF. The other stuff I'm showing you is screen grabs that were put into PDF form. So it's naturally going to be a lot more distorted just because of the nature. It's not a full PDF. But when we go back to the Game Master revised and we get into the same page, you'll notice the wording is a lot tighter and there's just more clutter on the page. We get into the remastered. So one of the things you'll notice is there's a lot more white space in the player core book and the GM core as well. You'll see that there's a lot more clarity. The words are a little bit larger, and it's just a lot more clearer than the original, which is nice. As well, you can see on the side that they've added in the same side that they have currently, but this has a lot more detail when you get to that page. So it does show a little bit more information than what you normally would have seen, which is great. Then they delved into the ancestries that'll appear in the new book, which now includes the Leshy and the Orc. It's very fitting that the Orc got put in here. They were even joking about it because of the remastered project that's under the Open RPG creative license, which is called the Orc. So this is something that they thought would be good thematically to put in, and honestly, I love orcs, so I have no problem seeing them in here. It's interesting that the Leshies have a con, wisdom, and a free attribute boost and a flaw of intelligence. I think that's interesting. Orcs have just 2 free attribute boosts and no flaws, which is nice. They also got into the versatile heritages of the Changeling, the Nephilim, which I know that Michael was saying it's Nephilim, but in 50 years, I've never called it that. I call it a Nephilim, so that is how I will, and that's going to be a tomato argument for people on the internet. Also, there is the mixed ancestry, which is not just human mixed ancestry, so half elf or half orc. It is now you can create different versions of it, which is really nice. Again, opens up a lot of player choices. They didn't really get into the changeling at all during this preview, which I kind of wish they would have. I would like to have seen what they were going to look like. Alas, we'll have to wait for another update or until November when we actually get the book. Then we saw the new classes, which is the Bard, Cleric, Druid, Fighter, Ranger, Rogue, Witch, and Wizard. So obviously the Witch is the newest class in, and we are not seeing the other classes, which are going to be in the Player Core 2 slated for July 2024, which is the Alchemist, Barbarian, Champion, Investigator, Monk, Oracle, Sorcerer, and Swashbuckler. So we have to wait for a while to see that, but I'm pretty sure we'll see some previews in the next little bit after they release the Player Core in November 2024. We're also going to see ancestries such as Catfolk, Gnoll, Hobgoblin, Kobold, Lizard Folk, Rat Folk, the Tengu, alongside 3 versatile heritages, one being the Damphir, which is a vampire or undead, the Duskwalker, which will be interesting to see what that is, and apparently an all-new heritage that has not been disclosed yet. So then we got into the Leshy. Again, this is one that was in other books earlier, and now they've just made the jump into the player core. It's nice to have this kind of Fey spirit in the book as an option for players. I believe most of the heritages are not new, but I have never played a Leshy, and I've actually never read up on them because I have no players that are a Leshy, so I wasn't concerned about it. So we see the new beliefs written under each ancestry, which shows popular edicts and popular anathemas. That, again, those are player choice. It is not something that you must follow. I would assume that you can have a few different things. It could be weird to pigeonhole the ancestries that way, but we'll see as it goes on. So we can see all the different heritages, cactus, fruit, fungus, gourd, leaf, lotus, root, and seaweed. There may be more, but this is the only page we had, so we didn't see anything else. I believe the seaweed is a new one. I have not seen that one in the Archives of Nethys before. So orcs get a full write-up in the book, and we can also see again in their beliefs. They have popular edicts and anathemas. And these ones here are: popular edict is to become even stronger, share knowledge, you won through pain, or destroy undead. So again, those are just popular ones you have. You can make up other ones, and you can also have the popular anathemas: accept defeat without proof of strength, reshape and or reanimate a creature into something lesser. And we do get to see the different heritages, which is, Badlands, Battle Orc, Deep Orc, Grave, Hold Scar, Rainfall, and Winter. And I believe all those have been published previously before as well. Next up is the Nephilim. And yes, I know Mike says Nephilim, but I will not. So the Nephilims are the counter to 5e's Tiefling and Azamars. Paizo is really doing a great job of, again, giving players choices. They are an uncommon heritage, so you do have to check with your GM if they're going to let them in. But you do pick one of your starting feats, so you can be Angel, Grim, Hellspawn, Lawbringer, Muse Touch, Pitborn. But after that, you do get to do a lot of customization because of the different feats that you get as you level up your character. So at 1st, 5th, 9th, you get ancestral feats, and you can do some interesting ones. All right, so one of the ones is Bestial Manifestation, which allows you to change your body parts into something more akin to a planar creature. So that way you can get a claw, a hoof, a jaw, or a tail. And the one thing to remember though with this one, and it says it right in there, is you can select this feat only at 1st level, and you cannot retrain into or out of this feat, nor can you change the type of attack you gain. So this one, if you're playing a Nephilim, you really need to choose this one carefully if you want it, because once you start the character, you are done. You're not going to be able to grab it again. All right, we moved up into the fighter. So we moved past the ancestries and into the classes. One of the things you see here on the page is that every class comes with a list of all their feats that are currently published in this book. And you can see that they're in alphabetical order, which allows you to pick pretty easily when you are looking for them, because most people know the feat by name, not by what level it should be at roughly, especially because as you go up in levels, at 4th level, you do not have to take a 4th level feat. You can take a 2nd or a 1st level feat. So having the name is much more handy. It goes over several more of the feats: barreling charge, dual hand assault, slam down, all that stuff. Most of these that were shown were already in the core. One of the big changes though is the open trait is gone. So what open used to be is it had to be the first thing you did in your turn. So sudden charge is a great example of that. You had to open with that. So if you're going to charge, you had to do it now, especially as a really great feat for closing distance. So now you can hit someone. If you drop them, you can now suddenly charge and run across the battlefield. Before it was, if you had to hit the opponent that was in front of you, that's all you could do is hit them. And then even if you dropped them, you would just have to move. You'd have to stride normally to move to another person. You didn't have that option to charge, which is a huge, again, tactical bonus for fighters and others, barbarians and others that used to have the open trait. So that is now gone. Next, we moved into Cleric. Now, the big thing with Cleric is as they removed alignment, which to me is absolutely fine, because alignment is a very Dungeons and Dragons thing. It is very OGL. It is something that really pigeonholed players into a certain way to play. So if you were a lawful good paladin, everyone always points that out. If you're a lawful good paladin and your group had to interrogate someone, the paladin usually had to wander away and go visit the museum or, study the beautiful, glorious architecture around the building. And that way the players could do what they needed to do to persuade, shall we say, the person into giving up some information. Now they don't. As long as you do not violate your edicts or you violate your anathemas, you are fine. This really opens up players to just be able to play in the moment and get their RP that way. The edicts and anathemas still will limit you a little bit, but it's a lot broader of a category of limitations than it used to be, which is really nice. So on here we can see the Cloistered Cleric and the War Priest getting a little bit more fleshed out. The biggest thing that came up is right there. Key terms, holy and unholy. These traits mark something like your character or a spell that belong to one side of the battle between celestials and fiends. Generally, fiends and undead are susceptible to holy abilities and celestials to unholy ones. Now, you can be sanctified. So if you are holy or unholy, your sanctified actions and spells gain the same trait. So this is really it's going to be for champions. It'll be for clerics, likely for druids as well. Some deities will require you to either be sanctified holy, or they might require you to be sanctified unholy. There are apparently a couple of the deities that will allow you to go either way. It won't make a difference. That'll be very interesting to see how it plays out, and being able to add in your holy or unholy damage as you see fit. So spell shapes allow you to tweak your spells. I think it's a better word than meta magic. In D&D, meta magic just sounded weird. A spell shape means you are shaping your spell a certain way, and to me that just makes it a little bit easier for a new person to kind of grasp the concept of it. All right, next up we went to the witch, and of course this is the class that got a lot of love and reworking from the Paizo folks. The reason they said that it was included in this is to have an occult class really ingrained in the first player's core. So again, at the top of the page, you can see witches' feat by name, and they're all alphabetical, which is great. The list is much lower than a fighter, but I think the fighter needs more because the fighter fills a lot more roles. The patrons and the familiars are going to be a lot more prevalent in the game, according to Paizo. They said it's going to feel more interactive with your patron and your familiar, or your patron through your familiar, I guess it is. So it's really nice to see the different patrons and what they do. So, Face Flamekeeper is your divine, which gives you the religion. Then we go down to the inscribed one, which is your arcane, which is interesting. Mint is your occult. And this one here has an interesting ability. When you cast or sustain a hex, your familiar can curse a creature within 15 feet of it, prolonging the duration of any negative conditions affecting it by 1 round. This is a curse effect. Prolongs only conditions with a time duration, such as 1 round or until the end of your next turn, etc. It doesn't prevent conditions from being removed by other means. So it won't work on prone, it won't work on knocked out. There's a few other ones it won't work on, but something like Blinded 1, you could extend it as well. One of the things that I find interesting is it just says you curse a creature within 15 feet, not the person that you cast or sustained a hex on. It doesn't say it has to be that person. So in theory, you could sustain or cast a hex on someone else. And if someone's, let's say, blinded, theoretically, by reading these rules, you should be able to actually sustain the hex on a different target. It doesn't say it has to be the same person. So I will be interested to see if this gets an errata or a clarification anyway. We then moved into the Silence of the Snow, which is your primal. Spinner of Threads, which is an occult. Starless Shadow, which is an occult. And the Wilding Steward, which is also primal. So it's really nice to see that they've decided to give you multiple options again, lots of options to which kind of spell list you want to run, what kind of familiar you want to have, and what the familiar is going to do as you level up. Again, I do salute Paizo for giving players tons of player options, and I think that was what makes a game really, really good. It also makes it complex, but it makes it good. And then again, we've seen more feats going up. Another humorous one that I had to point out, I mean, humorous to me, is called the Double Double. I'm Canadian, so it actually took me a second to realize that they meant the witch's incant double, toil and trouble, not a double, meaning your witch was heading over to Timmy's for a coffee. So it really actually made me think about that for a second. Welcome to being a Canadian. And that was it. So you got to see a whole bunch of new parts of the witch. Now, the wizards we got into, this is one of the hotly debated ones online, mostly for the fact of removing the arcane schools. So the original schools in Dungeons and Dragons are like evocation, conjuration, illusion, enchantment, divination, transmutation, all that stuff. And I've said it before, I'm all for removing these. The reasons for it are pretty simple. 1, they're super entwined with Dungeons and Dragons for over 50 years. 2, not all spells fit into a school nicely. There have been so many heated conversations with players of why expel is not in Y school, even though the theme of the spell would lean it that way, and you can see it that way. But, you know, in 3, just because something has been around for 5 decades does not mean it is the best thing or the right thing. It is just what it is. Things can and should change over time. With this evolution of arcane schools becoming just that, schools, it really allows players and GMs the freedom and flexibility to add new schools into the world, such as, you know, they've already spoken about a goblin pyromancy school. I love goblins. I will be playing a goblin in my Abomination Vault campaign when I get to it, whether I am a kineticist or swashbuckler, or, you know, pick up the wizarding school of pyromancy. Who knows? Leshy could have a school of agriculture and environment. That'd be hilarious. What about a dwarven school of hearth and home? I mean, these are all options that is allowed to see. So we can only see in this preview a few of the schools that they are showing on the PDF. And James also mentioned the one that's called the School of Protean Form, I believe. So, you know, there are a lot of different things that you're going to be able to see as they go. So in here we have the School of Battle Magic, School of Boundary, School of Civic Wizardry, and those were just the tip of the iceberg. There is no real limit to what the team can add to this going forward. I mean, I know there are a lot of concerned players about Pathfinder Society, and yet it is very, very, very likely that players will have to follow the arcane school to the letter when this swaps over. Then again, maybe not. One of the things you have to remember is there's nothing to say that they cannot reward on an adventure the ability to unlock a spell for your school. It would get noted on your adventure record, and then you have access to it. Again, lots of things can be done, so just give them some time to get these out the door and get it sorted out, and then we'll, you know, go from there. All right, one of the things they pointed out was the multiple attacks with athletics. So as long as you have a hand free, you are just using your fist to determine your multiple attack penalty. So your fist agile trait applies. Therefore, you take a -4 if the action is on your second action of the turn, and -8 instead of the -5 and -10. So that will make it a lot more easier to do things in athletics than you could before. Under the next one here, they showed grapple, leap, and a few other ones. The interesting thing on this is that the forced movement basically tells you that reposition and shove force a creature to move. When an effect forces you to move, or if you start falling, the distance you move is defined by the effect move, not you, because it's not your speed. I mean, if you're falling, you're not going to only fall 25 feet and stop moving. That doesn't the way gravity works. But because you're not acting to move, this doesn't trigger reactions triggered by movement. So one of the things I want to point out is reposition. So reposition says on a critical success, you move the creature up to 10 feet. It must remain within your reach during this movement, and you can't move it into or through obstacles, which makes sense. A success, you move it 5 feet. Here's something really fun. I believe there's an optional rule in the book that says if you're doing something to a friendly person, they can basically allow you to do it, and it bumps the result up by 1. So if you would succeed, you would critically succeed. This allows, let's say, your fighter to wander over, grab your wizard who's in front of a big bad thing, pick them up, move them over 10 feet, so 2 squares, without provoking an opportunity attack from the creature they're facing, and then allowing them to, like, you know, step in and attack. So it could be kind of fun to be able to, you know, pick up your friends and, you know, toss them around the battlefield. Now, it does say you can't have only one size larger than you. I would assume that things like Titan Wrestler that allow you to do larger ones would also allow you to reposition of larger sizes. Same with shove. You could just move over and just shove the person out of the way. And again, it is forced movement, so would not trigger an attack of opportunity. All right, so on this page, the biggest thing that we got to kind of look at was monster crafting. So this allows you to take parts of a monster to aid you in crafting. You can use the body of a monster to help craft items, using survival instead of crafting to craft the activity when you do so. If the parts of the monster's body are valuable, you can expend them towards the item's raw material cost as well. But this will allow, like, rangers or druids or other people with survival to, you know, take monster parts and use them in crafting and use the survival instead of crafting during downtime, which is really fun. You literally come into, like, you know, your your eye of newt, your spider legs, or the testicles of a manticore. Don't ask how they got them, don't ask why they have them, but now they're making something with it and you don't want to know. But yeah, that's going to be a very interesting addition to the game. The next page, the big focus was again down at the pets. Everyone loves pets. For those of you who have watched my stream for the Kingmaker, which you can see over on Twitch, links down below, you will see R2 and 3PO, my two cats, on the stream. And I know all of my players at the table, we all have pets. So this allows you to actually have a pet and it'll actually be able to survive. It does get 5 hit points per level, so it is not a Colossus. It's not going to, meant to be running into combat and stuff, but it does allow you to have a really cool little ability, little buddy with you. It has a speed of 25 feet. It can have an aquatic trait, so you can have a fish, I guess. You could have a bird as a pet, etc. They do get pet abilities. They're not as good as a familiar's abilities, but you can have some interesting things like give it dark vision, give it fast movement, give it a flyer. Your cat could have wings. That would be terrifying. My cats are nuts when they just run around normally. I couldn't even think about it if they started get their zoomies and they could fly. I think my life would be over. The one thing to notice with this is if you gain a new pet by retraining this feat, releasing the previous pet you have, if you later gain a familiar or other companion that uses a pet feat, you can immediately retrain this feat. So familiars and stuff will probably get this type of feat with it, and you'll be able to use it as you go. So that's really cool. The next page basically was talking about different items and equipment, but their more focus was on the following page, which is showing some of the items. So Adventurer's Backpack, Healer's Toolkit, love the Traveler's Chair. I love the inclusivity of it. Then we got into some spells, and one of the interesting things that you'll notice is on Charm. They has a new subtle trait. So subtle means that, you can get away with it without people noticing, which has always been kind of a debate, is you cast Charm on a person. If it fails, do they know that you just try to charm them? Do people around see you casting on the person a charm spell? That's kind of always been a weird thing. So it's nice to see that trait in there. We go down to Chilling Darkness, and we can see the Unholy trait in there, which is great. Again, starting to see the Holy and Unholy in there. And then we can go up to Cleanse Affliction. Cleanse Affliction is taking over for several spells that did pretty much the exact same thing, but you had to kind of choose as a cleric if you're picking the right thing to cleanse for the day. So are you going to hit an affliction? Are you going to hit a curse? You're going to hit a disease, a poison? What are you going to need? This is now just kind of under one roof. You can heighten them so you can counteract an affliction if it's a disease, and you can heighten it even to 4th level to attempt to counteract an affliction if it is a curse, disease, or poison. So that is a great little quality of life improvement. Again, shrinking down a lot of spells. In here, we get to also see they're starting to bring in the new traits from Rage of Elements. So Control Water has the water trait, and Cozy Cabin has the wood trait from the wood elements. So that is a really neat little addition to the game. So here we see Runic Body and Runic Weapon, which took over Magic Fang and Magic Weapon. And you can see that they've also allowed this to now be heightened, so you can move it into the 6th rank of spells and the 9th rank of spells. And the unarmed attack would become +2 greater striking at 6th, and the unarmed attacks are +3 major striking at 9th. So this is a great way to make these scale up with the player. All right, from here we get into the differences in character sheets. So this is the current new character sheet. It is what I call printer friendly, because this is what the original one looks like. So that is the original player's character sheet, and as you can see, it is just so busy. The red is just horrendous, and if you print this out, you are going to blow through your ink or your toner. It is just not as nice. I think they did a much cleaner job on this. I would have liked to seen armor class a little bit bigger and hit points maybe a little bit bigger, but otherwise it's a really good sheet. It shows you everything you need. I do like the fact that, they have the different weapons, so ranged and regular, ranged and melee. You have all your skills and all your stuff. It's just a really, really well done character sheet. So here we see the second page of the character sheet. You can see again, it is a lot cleaner, it's a lot more open, and it will not destroy your toner or ink cartridge. This was what the original character sheet looked like. Again, it is very, very busy. That red background is just rough on the eyes. So I'm extremely happy that they've decided to go to something like this for the new character sheet. All right, and then we moved into the GM core. Now, again, this doesn't affect a lot of people, mostly because most players are going to need the players. Only the game masters are going to need the GM core. They showed us again what the line art looks like. This you'll be able to pick up at your favorite local game store. You just have to get it ordered. There is also apparently a leather bound edition as well. So those three options, so the regular cover, the line art cover, and the leather cover, are available in November of this year. And apparently the pocket size editions are a month or two after that. So if you're looking for the pocket editions, you're going to be waiting a little bit longer. If you're looking for the hard covers, you can get the original art off of the website if you're on the subscription. If you're looking for the line art, it is going to only be at your local game store. So here we see the table of contents, which is, you know, the running the game, building games, Age of Lost Omens, and we see some of the artwork. And again, the artwork is just amazing. We see the subsystems, the treasure trove, which is all your magic items, and again, more art. Again, you can see how open and clean this looks. It's very easy to read. It's not busy, and it just has a lot of white space, which you really, really do need when you're starting to read these books. I love the fact they get into a campaign structure. They talk about what a different campaign is. They get into things like, you know, what is a one-shot? What is a brief campaign? What is an extended campaign when you're, you know, looking for what levels should be running, right? What your epic campaign is, where you're looking at 20 levels and you're looking at, you know, 1.5 years weekly or 3 years bi-weekly to get through a campaign. I do like that they give you kind of a good guess as to what you're getting yourself into. If you're running a one shot, it's literally one session. But if you're getting into, you know, an adventure path like our Kingmaker, which takes the characters from 1st to 20th level bi-weekly, it will take us a few years to complete it, which is going to be fun. But also it kind of lets you know what you're in for when you start doing it. They get into the free archetype rule. They talk about building characters. They talk about building with the free archetype. Honestly, just do it. It doesn't add a ton of power to your players, but it does add a ton of options to your players. So I cannot stress it enough how good that it is. So I would suggest to anyone who is running campaign to definitely give free archetypes a try. It talks about level 0 characters on this page, etc., and it goes from there. It talks about things like proficiency without level, or how to adjust the encounter. That is a very important one for when you are trying to figure out the character XP or the level the party needs to see, and how bad they will get absolutely destroyed if you go too high a level. It also talks about building creatures, another section in the book, so you can start making your own characters. I do like that they give you, you know, how to build your character, you know, develop the concept, build the stat block. They talk about which pages you'll find things like level and size and traits and all that stuff, speed, design ability, you know, et cetera, et cetera. It talks about traits. It talks about designing the NPCs. It's got all these pages everywhere, which is really, really nice. It's something that a lot of brand new GMs, even seasoned GMs, they don't know exactly how to build this. This is a great tool on how to do it. It also gets into the GM core of the background, so it gets into a few of the different places. Again, you can see the beautiful artwork in here. Absolutely love it. Again, more artwork, such good artwork. And then it goes into your subsystems, so it does talk about all the different subsystems. And when you look at all the different subsystems they have, it goes through victory points, influence, research, chases, infiltration, reputation, duels, leadership, exploration, and more. And so it's really nice to see that they're giving each a good amount of work. Finally, we moved on to magic items, and here you can see the new layout of the magic items. It talks about how to activate them and all that stuff. Again, really easy to read, lots of white space on here. And of course, more of the artwork, which is really, really nice. Really impressed with this. And then we got into some pictures from the monster book. So this is some of the artwork from the monster core coming out. And yes, you're going to see things like halfling fighters and other races as monster stat blocks so you can throw them into your campaigns. This here is the rough line artwork of the monster core book. It's going to be hilarious. We got a dragon up in the side. We got trolls. Looks like Myconans are running along in a terrorized flea. This is going to be just absolutely wonderful, and I'm looking forward to it. And yes, I would buy a line art book like this for sure if that cover is available. And then we got into the player core 2, so we got to see all the different races in here, which is interesting that they didn't show some of the newer races as just the icons for the game. But that's fine. I guess we'll see more artwork of the new Ancestries as we get going. All right, so that is the overview of the player core and the GM core from GenCon, which was great to see. It was nice to see them really get in there and show the fans, which is fantastic. And now we just get to wait until November to get the actual books in our grubby little paws. So if you're interested in more content, please remember to like and subscribe below and click that bell for notifications on new videos. Let me know in the comments below what you think of these announcements. What are you excited for? What are your concerns? Is there an arcane school that you would love to see in the book? Let me know down below. And that's it for now. In the meantime, and in between time, that's it. Another Mythic episode. Thanks for watching, and may all your games be full of myth, mirth, and magic.